Thank you, Arman, and welcome, colleagues. Well, it's a special role, a special honor to be the final speaker of the seminar. So I'm Larisa Riasnianskaia. I head the product department at NSD. Today, I would like to share with you the way that NSD adapts to the new regulation of EU, that is Central Securities Deposit Regulation, SECURITIES. I will briefly describe what the regulation is about and why we need to adapt our operations to that set of rules. In the second part of the presentation, I will specify which parts of our operations are to be adapted and how this will affect our clients. The regulation itself was adopted in 2014. Its purpose is to ensure and promote safe, efficient, and smooth settlements, trade settlements in securities markets throughout the European Union. This regulation covers European, national, as well as international depositories, which were mentioned more than once today, the so-called CSD'S, Your Clear Bank, and Clearstream Banking. We will go into more detail with respect to settlement discipline regime. This specifies the regulatory standards to improve trade settlements in European securities markets. This also aims to strengthen the discipline for European depositors. Also in 2018, technical standards were adopted adjacent to this regulation that support the implementation of all the regulations. So we are preparing ourselves for the 1st of February 2022 when this becomes effective. And the following measures are discipline measures are to be implemented. First, it is so-called full STP, that is, implement procedures to confirm trade details in real time. Second, encouraging and incentivizing timely settlement of transactions by providing services such as partial settlement and hold and release, which I will explain later. And also a very important, maybe one of the most important parts of this regulation is the requirement to monitor settlement fails and reporting to competent authorities on a regular basis about the number of such failures, the volumes involved, and the application of penalties. There are measures to prevent settlement fails. First, full automation of execution. Second, there's a new mandatory field, and that is the data field for transaction date. That is apart from other mandatory fields. Also, the application of permissible tolerance level. There's also a requirement to set up a bilateral cancellation facility and also notification in real time on the transaction settlement status, whether it is fully settled or partially settled, has it been put on hold or cancelled. Measures to address settlement fails. If the measures described on the previous page did not help the counterparty to exercise its obligations fully and in time, these measures include the system of monitoring, and the European Central Depository will inform the competent authorities on the number and value of settlement fails and all any measures that are taken with respect to those participants who do not perform their obligations. Also, what they plan to do is annual public disclosure on settlement fails. There's also a procedure for mandatory cash penalties, which I'll explain later. Let me just say that the penalties are calculated only at the level of European and international depositories, and they concern all European stock market participants in case their settlement location is either local market or CSD, or if it's a bridge between Euroclear and Clearstream. If the transaction is not executed, the regulation specifies the mandatory buy-in procedure, but it's not about corporate action. It's the case when the part of the securities was not were not delivered by the date of completion of the transaction. So before the buy-in, the time the participants are given this opportunity to complete the transaction in this period, additional period. For liquid shares, it's 4 business days. For other financial instruments, 7 business days, and for SME growth markets and financial instruments traded there, it's 15 business days. There is some impact that we see on market participants. I must note that those measures concern all participants, because unless we cannot avoid adapting to Euroclear and Clearstream, and also must respond to our update of ICSD. And the way that the clients are affected include new services that will be must be received. There must be improved settlement discipline, full liability on the client's part for settlement fails, and also if any cash penalties are applied, and if a buy-in procedure isn't triggered, this is all the responsibility of the NSD and clients. Just briefly, what changes are taking place at National Settlements Depository? First, it's a hold and release service. This mechanism is implemented for internal settlement within SECURITIES, and for Clearstream for external settlement. The idea is that participant in the settlement process can put the instruction on hold if for some reason they don't want the transaction to be executed before they have enough funds. And in this case, the trade can be executed only when both instructions are given the release status. Also, the service will allow partial settlement service, which will available if partial delivery is possible when there are insufficient assets, and is also allowable if both parties agree. You cannot use the partial delivery option unilaterally. A little bit more detail for cash penalties. There are certain conditions for their application. First, there must be matching instructions. The matching instructions must be matched, no differences, and the status of the transactions must be pending, not cancelled, and not put on hold. There are two types of penalties. First is called late matching fail penalty, which will apply to instructions matched after the intended settlement date, and settlement fail penalty, which applies to those participants in the settlement process who did not perform their obligations by the intended settlement day for some reason. Penalties can be applied to both sides of the trade, but it is no zero-sum game case because different rates are applied to the supplier of the security and the payer, but there are some exceptions for European central depositories in deciding whether or not to apply cash penalties to the participants. This slide provides brief information on the cash penalty calculation procedure. You can read that when you have time. So what about NSD response? How we will respond? We will receive statements on penalties applied to our clients from the European central depositories, and we will put those into individual reports to NSD clients. Such information will be provided on a daily basis, and such reports will include details such as the particular instruction that triggered the non-execution procedure, and also details on how the penalty was compiled. The details on penalty is needed for clients if they want to appeal against this measure. This option is provided by European depositories, and then NSD will support the appellate process by delivering the request to the European Central Depository, where the client must specify why they believe the penalty was not appropriate, what the amount should be, or maybe they will explain that it is the counterparty's fault, not theirs. And for this purpose, these penalty details must be communicated. Then, as a result of the reporting period, a month before, the final monthly report will be compiled on all the penalties and any pending penalties that they may receive from the counterparty, because penalties are redistributed between them from the guilty party to the injured party. So this monthly report will in particular indicate the net amount as of the end of the month, which may be either positive or negative, depending on who behaved properly, either the client or the other counterparty. After the penalty settlement is complete through our accounts, we will then implement penalty settlement in the respective currency with our clients. And also NSD will perform certain intermediary role in buy-in if that is relevant, but we're not planning to act as a buy-in agent. That's all I was planning to tell you today, and now I can take any of your questions. If there are no questions, let me just wish you the successful completion of the seminar and the day. Thank you very much. It is true that many of us are preparing our operations, preparing the adaptation of our operations to be in compliance with the European law. It was really relevant information for all. Stay safe and all the best.